I guess we will get started. Thank you everyone for joining today. Good morning and welcome to the first series on self-care in the workplace for supervisors and managers. My name is Tanya Warwick and I'm a board certified behavior analyst and clinical coordinator for the IPPI in Massachusetts. My colleague Ashley Marianic, who is a licensed independent clinical social worker, and I will be presenting on self-care as it relates to the current pandemic that has affected not only our professional lives, but also our personal lives. First and foremost, we want to thank all the managers and staff and supervisors and senior management team and everyone on the front lines. You really are our true heroes to so many. We appreciate everything you're doing to keep yourselves and the individuals we serve healthy and safe.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll go ahead and get started on today's objectives. So today's training is ultimately and proactively geared for supervisors and managers to help supervisees identify and navigate the stress we are all currently experiencing as it relates to the current pandemic. Today's specific objectives will define employee burnout, identify signs and symptoms of employee burnout within residential home care settings, identify individualized self-care and methods to help alleviate symptoms of burnout and within the residential care home settings, as well as identify ways to support staff through ongoing communication, empowerment, teamwork, compassion, and integrity. So let's talk a little bit about burnout. Burnout's nothing new. However, it's a very well-known term, but at this time we're focusing on burnout specifically as it relates to COVID-19. Burnout is essentially a reaction or a symptom to prolonged or chronic job stress characterized by ultimately 3 dimensions. It can look like exhaustion, it could look like cynicism, where you find less identification with your job, and you could be experiencing feelings of reduced personal and professional abilities. Go ahead and talk a little bit about what are the potential causes of burnout. One of the main causes of staff burnout is feeling unsupported by a supervisor, manager, and/or overall agency as a whole. There could be some decreased connection or misalignment between work and IPPI's core values and mission. Employees that work specifically in direct care services, especially working with individuals who are extremely vulnerable, are prone to stress given the high demands of being responsible for somebody else's well-being. Staff might fear that they might take where they might have been exposed, bring that back to a family member. We all have supervisees or staff that might be living with individuals that are vulnerable themselves or might have compromised health issues or concerns. Staff could be experiencing financial strains or burdens at this time. And staff could also be being nervous about running low on medical supplies and, for example, masks. But again, burnout is nothing new, but it is important to be talking about right now, especially given everything that's going on.
I just want to stop real quick and ask if everyone could please mute their phones and their audio until the end of the presentation. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So let's talk a little bit about what are some common symptoms of burnout. If we could go, I'm sorry, if we could go ahead and just mute the audio, just so that there's no background, there's not background noise. Thank you, guys. So burnout can look differently in everyone. It's imperative that you as a supervisor or manager are having ongoing conversations with your supervisees and helping them navigate what burnout might even look like and help increase that self-awareness. So again, it's different for everyone. You could have a combination or a number of symptoms, and that could look like irritability or a change in the staff's baseline or personality. There could be physical or somatic symptoms, emotional exhaustion, reduced job performance, symptoms of depression, and/or alienation from work-related activities. We'll talk a little bit more about what those look like in depth. Again, some staff might exhibit symptoms of burnout across settings. They might be able to hold it together at work and maybe not be able to hold it together as well as within a home setting. So as far as alienation from work-related activities, staff might be viewing their jobs as increasingly stressful and frustrating. They might grow cynical about their working conditions and the people that they do work with. That could look like a coworker, a supervisor or a manager, and or even the individuals that you're specifically working with at this time. Staff might also be emotionally distanced, and they might sort of isolate themselves and begin to feel numb about the work that they're doing, whereas they might have been compassionate about what they were doing, and that might just be a little blurred at this time. But again, this is training, and this is something that we can all work with. As far as irritability or a change in personality, perhaps the staff might be less open to feedback, whereas maybe they were in the past. They might appear more irritable or closed off. That could look like either verbally or non-verbally, closed off in body language. You could feel, or they could be presenting as negative about suggestions for programming, whereas maybe in the past that they were super creative, and that, again, that could look differently for everyone. And it's imperative just to be mindful that folks could be really holding it together at work and then, struggling at home. And that's what we mean by across settings, or it could be vice versa. They are sort of losing it at work and not being able to hold it together. And maybe they're, doing really well with it at home. Again, it could look different for everyone. Let's talk a little bit about physical symptoms or somatic symptoms. Chronic stress may lead and likely does lead to physical symptoms, which could look like headaches or stomach aches, intestinal or gut issues, muscle aches, or trouble sleeping. That could look like you're either not sleeping or you're sleeping too much. Emotional exhaustion. Staff might be feeling drained, unable to cope, and absolutely exhausted. Staff might be lacking the energy to get work done. Again, this is normal. These signs and symptoms, again, exhibited across settings, towards individuals, family members, coworkers. Again, it could look like towards supervisors or management. That could specifically look like if you wanted to see maybe a staff member that you're working with could be observed as tearful and feeling like they wanted to cry at work. That would be a time where you would proactively help encourage them to be self-aware of that and normalize the fact that it's okay to switch out. If you want to tap out or switch out with another staff, honor that request for the coworker and encourage them to tap out. This is a real imperative time for us to really take care of ourselves. Reduced job performance. Burnout mainly affects everyday tasks at work or in the home, when someone's job might be involved for caring for other family members. I talked a little bit about where maybe the staff are going home and they have young children, or they're caring for their elderly parents. It could be a staff member that has a family member that has autoimmune issues, or might be compromised in health in some way, shape, or form. Feeling negative about just daily tasks. This could be, again, there's a lot of change in routine due to this pandemic. However, it could be maybe that staff member isn't as open to or receptive to feedback, or trying to get as creative as we possibly can at this time for the individuals. Staff might have difficulty concentrating and often, again, lack creativity. Some signs of depression that might look like burnout could share some similar symptoms of depression, including but not limited to loss of interest in pleasurable activities, maybe something that they used to do. They're not as interested in doing that anymore. It could be a lack of appetite or overeating. Could be, again, trouble sleeping, lack thereof, or too much sleep. Genuine and overall fatigue. Difficulty thinking and concentrating. Some other things I wanted to talk about, which is related specifically to social distancing, is that at this time, staff members could be experiencing loneliness, confinement, and boredom. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Tanya. Take it away.
Thank you, Ashley. What's really important to talk about today is that burnout is reversible. It is something that we can proactively work on to improve our overall health and well-being. And as staff and managers, we need to help encourage our staff to seek out supervisors they feel comfortable speaking to, and provide regular and confidential supervision with staff. That may look like, inviting your supervisees to come into your office and close the door so that that staff feels like they have a safe environment to be able to communicate and address their concerns to you in confidence. As a manager or supervisor, you want to be able to validate your staff concerns if they need any help or support materials to be able to provide effective services to our individuals. We can also provide outside resources, including, utilizing our human resources department, employee assistance program, and also the clinical department. We want to be able to